Hello everyone and welcome to another week of our weekly League of Legends news recap, where we take an unbiased look at what has gone on within the League of Legends community throughout the past week. My name is NormStorm and admittedly I do kind of have a sore throat going on, but regardless I will be your guide, and without further ado let's dive right into it. Starting off as per usual with our public beta environment, we're actually going to look at the past 2 weeks. Since then we'll be covering the entire PvE cycle and not just giving you half of the changes. So for skins we've got Dreadnova Darius, which is loot exclusive like Soulstealer Vayne and Hextech Annie. Then we also got the legendary 1820 skin Godfist Lee Sin, where we actually can see his eyes. Karma got splash art overalls for traditional, Sun Goddess, and Sakura, though she also got a very small tweak to her Order of the Lotus skin, but since it's just a very small change to her face, we're not really going to show it. And for our last miscellaneous changes, we got the Godfist Ward skin for 640 RP, new summoner icons, and highlights have been added to summoner profiles on the updated client, where you can watch your replays or delete them. There is also another option added called Close Client During Game, which closes the client while you are in-game to help FPS issues or presumably CPU issues as well. For strings that don't have any visuals, Brolov had chroma assets but they were later removed, while some strings were added for what looks like an MSI event, showing players in your game which team you are rooting for. And for magic shields, in normal mode the shield is now a more bluish purple, while in colorblind mode it appears to be more pink. Moving on to our balance changes, Lissandra saw some significant changes, but these were all later reverted, which may make a return for the 7.8 PvE cycle. Effectively, she got a new passive where casting a new spell will empower her next auto attack to do full magic damage, and every time she procs this empowered auto attack she gains maximum mana and more damage for later empowered autos, similar to Nasus or Veigar Q stacking. Then there were just buffs to her mana pool and changes to her mana costs on her Q, W, and E, while self-casting her ultimate also restored her mana. Kassadin saw some buffs where his empowered Ws will no longer cancel during the windup, his E has a lower cooldown, and his ultimate has a higher AP ratio. And for Alistar, his passive heal now affects all nearby allies instead of just one, and his trample got a lower cooldown and more scaling damage. For page 2 of balance changes, Amumu's passive was reworked where instead of flat reducing enemy magic resist, amplifies all magic damage they take. This passive is also applied by Amumu's W and ult. Camille's sweep no longer heals off of minions or monsters on the outer half of her W, while the Hextech ultimatum now has a shorter duration at ranks 1 and 2. Shaco's backstab damage was changed to now also scale off of some AP, while his Q's cooldown is now longer until rank 5. Bard now gains an additional 15 damage on his Meep empowered auto attacks at every chime tier, while Graves' quick draw no longer gives him magic resist. For our second last page of changes, we've got a lot of smaller ones, where Jarvan's shield now scales off of his maximum HP, and Katarina's E cooldown was raised at ranks 1 to 4. Lux's ult gets a reduced cooldown if it kills an enemy champion, while Rengar's Q does less damage if it is not empowered. Talon's Q does less damage in the early game, while Volibear's ultimate now bounces to more enemies, and in general is better at bouncing to additional targets. As for Galio, his passive does a little less damage while his Q has a higher AP ratio, but a lower maximum HP ratio. And for our last balance change, Nunu has less health regen and health overall, but his passive was buffed to not just empower his next ability every 5 attacks by giving it a 0 mana cost, but it now also upgrades the ability itself with what is effectively just number buffs. All of that being said, the patch 7.7 notes are up, and feature some changes not covered on the PvE, such as Raptors getting less base damage and more health, and the full changelog for the League client update. Patch 7.7 is expected to deploy tomorrow on Wednesday, April the 5th, in the wee hours of the morning. And while we'll get more into it next week, a new PvE update has gone out today on Tuesday, currently featuring the 2 new champions, Xayah and Rakin, which we'll take a closer look at later in the Riot game section, as well as the skins Cosmic Dusk Xayah, Cosmic Dawn Rakin, Conqueror Karma, and Cosmic Blademaster Yi. Not to mention a new ward skin, and MSI related summoner icons and Hextech crafting assets. For our more generic community news, it was relatively quiet with the exception of April Fool's Day, in which the League subreddit fully transformed into a shrine dedicated to Mark Merrill. It basically just entailed a lot of Mark Merrill related shitposting, including an AMA from Merrill himself. When asked about what he thinks about Reggie, he replied with, "Love me some." And now for a very quick look at our roster changes, 2 teams saw a support player leaving, with Ali leaving China's Qiao Reapers, and Adrian leaving North America's Team Liquid. Now for our news on Riot Games or the live servers in general, starting off in the Oceanic region, Team Regicide in the OCS has had 3 of their players competitively suspended after player behavior checks have discovered that they have elo boosted before in the past, as well an Oceanic tournament called the League of Origin has been announced, where it's basically a for fun and domestic tournament where they will have different teams representing certain parts of the Oceanic region, and this year on June 3rd to 4th, we'll see teams from New Zealand, Queensland, New South Wales, and Victoria all battling it out. For April Fool's Day 2017, Riot uploaded a funny Yasuo champion update video where effectively just looked like what a Yasuo Doom bot would theoretically look like. As well, we had the advanced bots, where if you went into a normal game, the enemy's team summoner names would be replaced with champion bot, depending on which champion they were playing, so Annie bot, Galio bot, etc. And as well, we got the release of the toy box skins for Alistar, Kog'Maw, Renekton, and Kennen. And as well, we got the new champion reveals for Rakin and Xayah, a bird person-like couple where one is a marksman and the other is a support. Starting with the support player Rakin, his passive, Fey Feathers, occasionally generates a shield, even in combat, with the shield cooldown going down by attacking enemy champions. His Q, Gleaming Quill, sends out a skill shot that bounces off of enemy champions or epic monsters. It deals damage and bounces back to him, which then triggers a heal around him after a short time span. This heal activates immediately if he touches an ally. His W, Grand Entrance, leaps him forward in a destination, and then he pauses for a bit before launching into the air and knocking up nearby opponents. His E, Battle Dance, leaps into an ally's side and gives them a shield, similar to Lee Sin's Safeguard. He can cast it a second time afterwards, even on the same ally, and this range is increased if he dashes to Xayah. And lastly, for his ultimate, the Quickness, he gains movement speed and briefly charms any enemy he touches. This works once per champ, and he gets another huge boost of movement speed if he hits the first target. Now for Xayah, she is a marksman. Her passive, Clean Cuts, lets her basic attacks pierce through all enemies in a path for a short amount of time, similar to Twitch ult, and leaves a feather on the ground where they land. Her Q, Double Daggers, sends 2 blades in a line which damage all enemies hit, and also leaves a feather where they land. Her W, Deadly Plumage, I'm not sure if I pronounced that right, but Plumage empowers her next few basic attacks for more damage and attack speed, while also gaining temporary movement speed if she hits an enemy champion. If Rakin is nearby while she activates this, then he will also get the ability's effects. Her E, Blade Collar, recalls all feathers on the ground back towards her, damaging enemies on their way back, and will root an enemy if several feathers hit them at once. And for her ultimate, Feather Storm, it leaps her into the air momentarily and makes her untargetable, before later hurling a bunch of blades in a cone. Each blade deals damage and leaves a feather upon landing. And for the special interaction between these two champions, if one of them starts a recall, the other can effectively hitchhike on the recall, and recall with the other at the same time without having to cast their own. And now it's time to take a look at this week's free champion rotation, where this week if you don't have Aatrox, Caitlyn, Dr. Mundo, Jinx, Kindred, Malzahar, Mordekaiser, Nidalee, Ryze, or Zilean, you can now try before you buy. And on sale between now and Friday, April 7th are the skins Ashen Lord Aurelion Sol, Shurima Desert Zilean, Ace of Spades Ezreal, and Sherwood Forest Ashe, as well as the champions Rengar, Diana, Zyra, and Heimerdinger. Before wrapping up the show, let's take a look at the birthdays celebrated this past week within the League of Legends community. We're celebrating the birthdays this past week were Jinky, Aberia, Zac, Glebe, Symphony, Dyrus, and Ryu, and that's not all because on page 2 we've also got Swiffer, Lee Sin, Amazing, NL, Huhi, Catch, and Lost. And that'll do it for this week of the weekly League of Legends news update. I hope you found this video informative and entertaining, and I would like to also thank you very much for watching this video. If you would like to further your support of the show, you're always free to leave a like, comment, or share to your heart's content. If you like the background music at all, you can send your compliments over to the creator Poorchoice over on their SoundCloud or Facebook. And if you want to know when more League of Legends news updates are uploaded, you can subscribe to the channel or follow me on Twitter at NormStormLOL. Don't forget to check out my Pro Tournament results rundown, and I'll see you guys in the future with some more League of Legends content.